30 Years of Legend of the Five Rings is a series of interviews celebrating 3 decades since the debut of L5R at Gen Con 1995. In this second series of the Play to Win podcast from Aconyte Books, we'll explore the perspectives of the people who had a hand in the franchise's making, past and present, the lasting impacts L5R has had on their lives, and what about L5R has made it an enduring force in the tabletop games industry after all these years. I'm your host, Katrina Ostrander, and I'm the creative director of story and setting with the franchise development team at Asmodee. I've had the privilege of working on L5R in various roles since 2015, including as writer, fiction editor, RPG developer, and story lead. In my current role, I help oversee the brand's development as it expands further into novels, comic books, video games, board games, and more. But before that, I was simply a big fan of the setting. In this episode, I talked to game designer and tabletop industry veteran Luke Peterschmidt. He was the brand manager for L5R for part of the Wizards of the Coast era, and he also served as the head of Office Dog Games, the studio responsible for the critically acclaimed L5R board game, River of Gold. We chat about the reinvention of L5R around the time it was sold to Wizards, the importance of renegade storytelling, a crazy pitch for an L5R MMO, and some lessons Luke took from L5R that I think any game designer or storyteller can take to heart. So let's listen in. Really grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Happy to be here and talk about one of my favorite things.
So you have a storied background with Legend of the Five Rings. When did you first hear about Legend of the Five Rings? And what was your initial involvement? And then can you tell us a little bit about your history with the franchise?
Sure. I first heard about Legend of the Five Rings. I guess this would have been the big TCG wave after Magic the Gathering came out. So this is like 94, 95. Lots of people were having TCGs come out. And sort of a new wave of companies started up, or at least grew to the size that they started to matter. Before trading card games, working full-time in the gaming industry was considered like a hobby job that had no future. But trading card games expanded the industry, so a lot of people had a chance to get in. I was working for a company called Friedlander Publishing, making a game called Guardians. And in this process of, honestly, I hope no one's insulted by this, people who were not qualified for their jobs, who took the jobs because no one else was there taking them, you got to know the other people at the small companies that were starting up. And honestly, some of the folks at like Wizards as well. So there's lots of nights at conventions, eating dinners with whoever's there, talking about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And through that, I met John Zinzer and Ryan Dancy. And at the time, I was convinced the game I was working on was definitely going to be great. And so I put them on my short list of people I might want to hire someday. Mm-hmm. Turns out the other way happened. But people aside, the brand, my first experience that I remember was the Day of Thunder being at the event and being just kind of blown away by hearing all the things they had told me about their product in person, and the sort of crazy flexibleness of everything. The fact that it all felt very loose. Card games are about math, and they're very hard to design. There's a reason rocket designers have made card games. But they managed to make a product that had this flexible narrative going in it that just showed a dynamic team doing really interesting things. And they were in it for the emotional impact. That stuck with me for sure then. And, I kept up with Ryan and John. My company eventually imploded, the company I worked for. And so I called them looking for a job. And I started working for them for a little bit, and then ended up not working on L5R at that time, other than if there's a meeting and there's someone around, they have an opinion. Mm-hmm. But then I moved to Wizards of the Coast. And I moved to Wizards of the Coast because Five Rings Publishing got purchased by Wizards of the Coast. And so I sort of came along in the deal. And in that process, over time, I moved into being the brand manager for Legend of the Five Rings and a couple other properties as well. And then I eventually grew a small team of brand managers.
Can I ask, what is a brand manager for the audience at home? Like, that's such a nebulous title.
It is. And I'll say, if there's people who are listening from the world of Procter & Gamble, it's not a nebulous title in the world of business. I think someone in our industry heard the title somewhere and gave it to someone and thought that sounds cool. Because, again, we really were loose and fast. We were not a button-down industry at the time. We were the stories from there of like, I can't believe you did that. That's a lot of that. There's a lot of like, I can't believe you took that crazy chance. I can't believe you did that crazy marketing thing that you did. So our take on a brand manager at Wizards of the Coast was kind of like you were in charge of the product. And the way the company was organized, we didn't have a small L5R team. We had an L5R brand manager, and they would get a representative from marketing and a representative from events and a representative from the folks that help you do printing and stuff. And so none of those people reported to the brand manager, but it was the brand manager's job to get them all working in sync to create a product that made the customer happy. So in my world, the brand manager is a person who speaks for the customer. It is the brand manager's job to know exactly how most enfranchised customers will respond to something, surprise them and delight them with what they like, and then create an onboard for new fans to become fans. And that definition for me has certainly worked, but it is still to this day a title that gets used in this industry where you may be a brand manager at a game company now and think you can go replace a brand manager at Procter & Gamble. You probably can't because definitions are different. So that's what my job was. My job was to manage the creative team who designed the product, who at that time was AEG. They were designing as an outside, even though we owned the game. They were still being paid for designing. And then I worked with the marketing professional, and I worked with all the different areas of the company to make it come together. And I remember it wasn't the brand was definitely in decline a little bit when I got it. And we had to sort of try to relaunch the brand. And people laugh at me to this day, but my take on how to relaunch the brand has a lot to do with the South Park movie, which doesn't make any sense.
I did not expect that to come up here.
So the Bigger, Longer, Uncut movie, I think it was called, there is a plotting and a pacing to that movie, which is nearly perfect epic fantasy. For those who know the movie, it starts out literally with a song called Happy Mountain Town, which is you saying, this is the world and it's a nice place. And it starts to get a little better, and then it's an emotional roller coaster where then the emotions go down, a prophecy is made. All along, the heroes try the right things, but it keeps getting worse. Eventually, everyone's trying to stop the prophecy. The prophecy then is stopped, but oh no, it's not stopped. It actually comes back, and someone you never expected, you thought was dead in Act 1, comes back and saves the day, which was Kenny. He went to the underworld and came back to the cool thing. So not the exact beats, but the emotional impact is how we laid out the next big story arc of what we wanted to accomplish. And we said, okay, that's the story arc emotionally, but I am not someone who can write a great story. And the amazing part of early L5R history is person after person who touched that brand was great at story. And it's so unusual to think in this day and age that the latitude that Ree was given is amazing.
This is Ree Soesby, and what was her role at the time?
Oh, I'm sorry. She was the story sort of main push at the time. So
a story lead.
Yeah, she spent a lot of time interacting in character on various forums that I directed her not at all. She just did it.
Wow.
It is insane, the level of freedom that we gave people with the brand. And to a person, I think they rose to the challenge, did a great job. Probably one of the things that have stuck with me from L5R is that lesson that people, if given the chance to stretch themselves, and a community of people who are excited can do amazing things. And that too often as managers, we spend our time stopping people from exploring what they're capable of. And when we let them, they surprise us more often than they fail us with amazing insights. With you are an expert on lore for L5R. I am not, and I'm specifically not on purpose. I didn't want to get into the nitty gritty. That was not my job. I wanted to focus on what the brand was about, core emotional beats, what the customers wanted, and then leave it up to the team to make amazing things. We had a visual director for this, our big relaunch set, Paul Tim, and Paul was passionate and he made amazing new card frames. People think this is silly. What's a card frame? Why do you care? Everyone cares about the art in the frame. If you look at the card frames from the Wizard of the Coast days, they were designed by doing paper folding, by folding paper in the way that Paul felt each clan would fold paper. And then he photographed it, and that was the card frame.
Wow.
Was I ever going to give him that direction? Not in a million years. But letting Paul be Paul got to some awesome stuff. And a thing I remember today, 25 years later, about what a brand like this does and the passion it sticks with you.
So what set are we talking here to kind of like put people in the frame of mind? We had like the Day of Thunder came about.
Yes.
And then I think we had like Hidden Emperor storyline for a while. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, there was the Scorpion Clan. There's the Scorpion Clan coup in there.
There's Scorpion Clan coup.
Yeah, but I think this would have been Pearl or Gold Edition, whichever one of those was first.
Okay.
Which is, I think you mentioned that Steve has already talked about the edition that we launched that eliminated a bunch of clans. And that was an event. But it was done because I wanted to do it, but not just because I wanted to get rid of clans and not just because I wanted to make people upset. It was done because L5R at its core is about story.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't tell a story with 11 main characters. It gets lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want every important character death to be important. And if it's only important to 20% of your audience, then it's not a shared experience. It's not a thing that people can care about. And so, we made some very big decisions. Redesigning the card backs, redesigning the card faces. We got rid of some factions. And a lot of people at every one of those steps thought we were crazy. But if you're a brand manager and you understand the core value of what your customers want, nowhere was the core value of this product, the card back or the card frame, or even the number of factions.
Mm-hmm.
The core value was this kind of rebel storytelling conceit that was at the core. And honestly, I feel like sometimes we talk about L5R, we forget the game's really good. It is not easy to design a good CCG. It's not easy to design card 1000 or card 2000. I remember when I was running the brand, this is a long time ago, we held the 2000th card party. It was a party in Southern California celebrating the 2000th card that we designed. And, that was, I don't know what they would be at if you counted it all up now, about how many cards were designed. But yeah, it's a lot. That's hard.
Somebody will tell us in the comments how many cards are on Oracle of the Void.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot. But that's hard. It's just hard to do.
Yeah.
So we talk about story a lot, but story, if the game was bad, wouldn't have worked. So it needed both. And the dynamicism of the design team, the mechanical design team, to be able to say, I'm going to respond to tournament results in real time is also very impressive. So yeah, shout out to all the folks who are on the design side who I feel like sometimes we forget about them because the story is so unique, right?
I didn't realize that although the brand had ended up under like Wizards of the Coast's ownership, that it was still like, it almost sounds a little bit like an indie team is still working on it, like people who are really passionate about it. And like footloose and fancy free, it sounds like the way that you're describing, or just doing community management in character. That's
crazy.
Yeah.
And that didn't last. I mean, there was a point where we did take the design back from AG and started designing in-house. But that early moment was the critical moment for the brand, was when we took the brand and made those big changes. Yeah, and that was incredibly rewarding. Of all the brands I've worked with, I don't think any brand sticks with me like L5R does. Even ones I helped create.
Why do you think that is?
Oh boy. So there is a bit of political science for a terrible political ideology. But one of the core principles is still very true, which is people would rather be part of a joint success than an individual success. And that's not true for everybody. But it's true for most people. Most people would much rather be part of a team winning than winning on their own. And of the two big things that L5R did, one of the things it did was it let you pick a team and root for the team even after you lost. And, Magic doesn't do that. People in Magic don't go, my blue deck lost, but I'm going to keep watching in case blue wins. No one cares, right? But when your Phoenix Clan deck loses, you still root Phoenix. Like, it's created the spectator sport that Magic tried to create through a different method, prize dollars and promotion of winners. And it created it more naturally as a outflowing of how the game played and how the core design team functioned with the game mechanical design team. The other thing it did was often gets misrepresented as, there'll be discussions about this in chat, I imagine. A lot of people think players having an effect on the story was the thing that made L5R what it is. And it was definitely a differentiator. That's like one level too surface. I think one level below that is what really made it successful, which is it was non-formulaic storytelling. You watch the first 25 minutes of an action film, you can turn it off and tell yourself how it's going to end, and you're going to be right most of the time. But by allowing players to have an effect, you communicated that we don't know how this is going to end either. And that is a real appeal to see what happens next. There's that what happens next, and then the proof that me as depending on the story person. I am going to let you choose who the villain is means, oh, what? You mean you don't even know? Like, nope, that's up to you. It's not that it's up to you that's important. It's that you know that I Don't have the answer yet. And it's going to be somewhat random, and we're going to run this ride together. It's like a roller coaster going around a blind turn. I don't know what's going to happen, but I like roller coasters. And that, what I call renegade storytelling, you can see it in the popularity of other types of media. You could see at the end of the first season of Game of Thrones, the guy who, by all accounts, in every fantasy movie, is going to live and survive and be the hero. Nope. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that unexpectedness it was a big part of what made L5R what it was. And it wasn't just the story, it was also the way the story people would respond to fan actions. Sometimes they'd watch exactly which decks were played, and they'd take those characters and write them into the story. And that was just proof, again, that the story wasn't set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
You were an active participant, but mostly you just wanted to know what was around that bend in the roller coaster. And I think it was truly compelling. And then the third element is every faction was a moral code. And every faction was right if you agree with that moral code, except for maybe the Shadowlands switch. So I could live the moral code I want. I could live the moral code of someone different than me with the full confidence I wasn't playing evil.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with the way the Crane lived. There's nothing wrong with the way the Lion clan lives. You can look at the Crab and go, you know what? Fully honorable. Like that. And that showed up even in the slogan for the box of honor is more powerful than steel. Like it was core to the heartbeat of every player to think, what kind of person am I? I can reflect what I think are my best values by which clan I choose. And I can't really hate any other clans because they're all understandable. Anyway, I could talk forever about this, so I'll try not to. Yeah.
I was going to ask, was there a clan that you found yourself at home in?
Oh, I was definitely Crab Clan.
You were Crab Clan?
Yeah, and again, I didn't realize why I liked them until later, and I really thought about it. I'm like, all right, what do? They defend the people. They're not so concerned with being the prettiest one at the party. That's not their thing. I know this is an audio podcast, but if you were looking at me, you would know and would say prettiest guy at the party. Like, I don't need that's just what I honor when I think about people in the real world. Like, oh wow, there's a person who was a coal miner, right? Like you worked in the coal mine, and people think, oh, what a dirty physical job. But then you look at New York City and you say, coal miners built that city. You might not feel like it, but that's where the steel comes from, and that's what built all those awesome New York buildings. So I just like that lack of me, and duty. And that was that just stuck to me. But again, I can't look at the Lion Clan and go, well, they're wrong. Like, it's just another good personality trait in a different way. Yeah, love me the Crab Clan. and I hate that I have a favorite. I know I'm probably not supposed to say that, but I absolutely have a favorite.
So I'm going to segue a little bit because looking behind you, there's a large piece of L5R art on your office wall. Can you describe it for listeners at home?
Yes, it's got 3 samurai coming out of, I believe it's the Obsidian Gate. And it is the cover image for a set we did at Wizards of the Coast called Heroes of Rokugan. So at some point at Wizards of the Coast, this is after Steve Horvath came on and he started being the active manager, and I was Steve's boss. We decided to do a project that was, I think, 18 cards in a binder that we could hand to someone who might want to make some other media to describe why Legend of the Five Rings is so cool. So if you've seen this box online, it's worth checking out. It's beautiful. It's the box that's like a silk lined with a 9-card binder and some background material, some mini comics and history on Legend of the Five Rings. And the idea was if we were pitching to a movie studio or a comic book studio or at that time, MMO studios were really big. We could just say, look, here's our product in a nutshell. And we could walk them through it and let them keep it. And as long as we were going to make it, we were going to make it available. So I think we sold 1,000 to the fan club, maybe. But that was the cover art, which I like to have a piece of art from all the games I work on. I've been in this industry a long time, so I have a lot of art.
Yeah, you've got a gallery behind you on the wall.
Yeah.
And that piece, who's...
Oh, sorry, that's a Bill O'Connor piece?
Oh, yeah.
And I got to tell you, Bill was one of the most amazing artists to work with. I don't think people appreciate this enough about him. He was the most professional artist I had met up to that point in my time. And I had good artist friends, so hopefully they're not listening. But if you were a small independent publisher and you were making a card game and you only had a small number of dollars for art, he would give you the best painting that you could get for that amount of dollars. And he would take clever art tricks. He would have the main character with their arms folded, so he didn't have to draw hands because the hands take too long. I mean, he was basically an egg timer by the hour painter, which might sound really demystifying to people, but that is how pros work. If you had lots of money to pay for a great cover piece, you got a great cover piece. Like, he just never let anybody down and never tried to slough off inferior work. Like, full respect to him and his legacy of work. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're talking about individual products, I wanted to ask, from the Wizards of the Coast days, are there any that you look back fondly on in terms of being like really rewarding to work on or potentially really challenging to work on?
I think the Heroes of Rokugan set was the most rewarding because it let me take a long view of Legend of the Five Rings in a single product. But if I'm going to talk about a moment that I'm the most proud of, we had a event. It was for the end of the storyline, the final culminating event at Gen Con. And at that time, my team was right next to the Magic the Gathering team. And the Magic the Gathering team was talking about $250,000 prizes for all their events. And the team was asking me, well, that's, we're giving away $250,000 at Gen Con or whatever. What are you giving away for your big event? And I said, I'm giving away 3 shitty trophies. and they laughed at me. And I'm like, no, and they're even shitty on purpose. What the company would give the players was meaningless because this isn't a company brand. It's a player-driven brand. So what we did is we gave away 3 shitty trophies, but we said if anybody wants to offer up a prize for any other players, they can do so. And so we laid out like a convention 3x8 table. And if people wanted to bring things, they could offer up as bounties for like the highest ranking crab player gets. I was the first person up. I'm like, all right, highest ranking crab player gets this thing of Old Bay because I love crabs. And it was a dumb thing because I didn't want to be the coolest thing. And then players just went nuts. And they brought flower arrangements and poems and amazing collectibles. Somebody worked at the Waterford Crystal Factory and made a crystal short dagger with a scorpion in it. It's a one of one. I mean, I have no idea what this thing, how this happened. And the person gave it away to the highest ranking scorpion player. And by the time we launched the event, there was 8 of those tables just packed with stuff from players who just wanted to participate in this awesome event. And then at the end of it, 3 shitty trophies. Because it's never about us. Like, it was always about them. And when I look back, that's the one that still almost chokes me up. Like, companies don't have to provide content when players are doing it themselves, when they're that engaged. And also, it was the opposite of Magic.
Yeah.
There was no money. In fact, it was the opposite. People were giving money away to be part of something, which is amazing.
That's really incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just shows the dedication.
Yeah, and before the property came to me, it had been made clear that if you participated, magic could happen. Certain people had done random things, used a character in a deck, and then it became part of the story. And once you do that, I think people want to be part of that magic in some way.
Yeah.
So if you gave something cool away at that event, thank you. But also, I know that in your heart, that was cool.
Yeah.
And it was very rewarding. Like, yeah, it was just awesome. I think we worked with the partner there, these really cool gold foil embossed, like, honor counters. I think the staff got some, and we had to make them for just that event. And it's just one of my prized collections, ownership things. Like, I have this cool painting behind me, but I have this little honor counter downstairs that's like, oh, that reminds me of that event. It's just cool.
Do you have any other, like, memories of, like, interacting with the fans or of, like, events or moments that you were really proud of?
Yeah, I'm sure Steve talked about this, but when we made the decision to relaunch new card backs and things, Steve had taken over the brand then, and we knew we had to deliver bad news. And Steve told the story, I'll keep it short. So we let Paul get up there and talk about all the cool stuff he's doing with the card frames, and we let everyone who worked in the product get up and be a star. And I said, look, I'll come in and I'll give you bad news because it'll be easier. Steve's like, nope. I'm going to do this. This is my job. I'm going to do. And he gets up there and he starts telling the bad news. And at some point, there's Q&A, and I'm the guy running around in the audience with the microphone now, just for questions for Steve. And I never forget the guy's question. He's just crying, and he's like, "I don't like the fact that you killed the Mantis clan, but I understand it. I don't have a question." Just like, wow, like that just sticks with you. You're like,
Yeah.
Steve made someone cry. But it wasn't Steve. It was, I'm really proud of that event because the team communicated some very hard things, but in exactly the right ways. The community took the hard thing and also understood our rationale. We didn't try to hide it. We didn't bulldoze people with it. We didn't try to surprise them. We were open and honest about why we did what we did. I'm a big fan of just being transparent and honest with fans. It never pays off.
Yeah.
So that's probably my two big moments for L5R that I remember. Yeah, that's probably it.
Awesome.
And interestingly, both of them were fan driven because that's what the brand's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to fast forward in time a little bit, but you ended up working at Asmodee at one point, and then you ended up working on Legend of the Five Rings again, which, I don't know, was that on your bingo card?
No, it was not. It was not. I mean, the crazy part about our industry is time. So if a bunch of people, like I mentioned earlier, were allowed to get into the industry in 94 and 95 and try, and then the people who survived all know each other. Maybe 1 out of 20 is still working in the space, but we all know each other. And the same thing honestly happened with crowdfunding. A bunch of people got into the industry through crowdfunding, and in 15 years, people who were early will all know each other. And Steve Horvath, the guy who I hired while I was at Wizards of the Coast, was the executive vice president here at Asmodee, and he's like, I need someone to start a studio making board games, which I had moved into, and I want that person to make games based on properties we own. I want this new studio to make games based on properties we own, and allow an easier access for American game designers into Asmodee, which is a thing we weren't very good at. And I'm like, all right, what brands do you own? He's like, well, at this time, the company owned Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings, and L5R. I'm like, I get all the rings. I get Lord of the Rings, and I get the Legend of the Five Rings, all the rings. That's why I took the job. I could come back here and work on games for brands that I really like. And it was very exciting. I think the studio was called Office Dog. And then our second release was River of Gold, which, again, a great testament to what happens when you just unleash talented people on a product. And, I had some leadership objectives for the product, but it is one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. I know you worked on that on the approval side, but that is a good-looking game.
And a surprise hit, I think. Like, I just keep on seeing people who are, like, again and again delighted by the gameplay. It's appealing to more than just Legend of the Five Rings fans, I think, is like a testament to the game design of Keith Piggott, if I want to say.
Yeah, Keith came up to us with a game that was not Legend of the Five Rings themed originally. So through development and working with Keith and some external developers, we saw this. And the beauty of a well-developed world is you can make all sorts of games in a well-developed world. Nothing about that game isn't Legend of the Five Rings. It is. It takes place in a real place, in the real world, where real people do those things. So it didn't feel like I was shoehorning anything, because in that world, there are things that happen other than samurais fighting. Right? There is all the rest of the world. If you wanted to make a farming game, it could be set in the world of Rokugan. It just could be. So it was a great game to work on. I honestly think in 10 years, if you were going to draw a line about important game releases, especially for visuals, that game will be on that list, because I have seen since that game launched, even inside of Asmodee, the belief that games could be prettier than they've ever been before and just better looking. Like, the team there just made a great looking game, and they made a great game. Like, take the time. I know there are lots of reasons why subpar games get made. Sometimes you run out of time, sometimes you run out of money, sometimes maybe your current opinions on quality aren't lined up with the consumer. But you only get so many games in your time. You should try your best to make them all great, and that team made that game great. It's been sold out constantly in the United States.
Yeah.
I think it's been out of stock more months than in stock, which is insane. But yeah, very happy with that game. Nominated for all kinds of awards, both for gameplay and for visuals. And Legend of the Five Rings just was a great world to set it in. It let us use characters and visuals and name places and resources that all added richness. That game could have been about driving corn up and down the highway, and it just wouldn't have had the weight and the specialness of what you get when you put a game into the world of Rokugan. It just feels like it's in a real place. It's a real gift to get to work in a brand like that.
And Office Dog also recently announced that they're doing a second Legend of the Five Rings game. Tessin.
They are. Tessin is much more of a game that we call dudes on a map. But that was a great game that got pitched to us by some external designers who really wanted to take a 2.5-hour Euro game experience and get it down to like 45 minutes, which that pitch just sits well with me as people's time gets more limited and people look at all the games on the shelf they haven't played because they all feel when you pick them up like, oh, I don't have that much time.
Yep.
So, and that game lets you experience the clans and the heroes, on a battlefield doing what you expect. But it also has it's not like a Risk dudes on the map game. It still has a heavy Euro style of play on what you're doing, which is nice. And I would love to see L5R just be a world that has lots of games of lots of styles of gameplay. I'm a big fan of this game called Skull, and I'd love to see a version of Skull with cool samurai. It'd be awesome. I mean, that game has no words. It's just pictures. It's awesome. Yeah.
So to close out our show, I wanted to ask, what lasting impact has L5R had on your life? Are there any lessons that you've taken away from working on L5R, or has it changed how you approach your work in the games that you help create?
A ton. I am unwilling, actually this relates to the second part too, in my job today to accept people's opinions about the games that are possible when they say things like, that's just not how it's done. So, for instance, if you're making a role-playing game right now and someone says, well, you got to be just like Dungeons & Dragons and a little different, or you're making a card game and if you just like Magic the Gathering or a little different, I think there's space for those games and they can be successful. But when people say that doing anything else is a mistake, I look at L5R and I remember L5R did a lot of things incredibly differently and they just thought differently. And I think too often we look at the leader of the market and we say we have to be like them with a little difference, and we don't challenge ourselves to solve the problem. How do I do this in a different way? So how to make an L5R game? It's not about samurai. Like, we did it and it worked. We self-limit what we think is possible too often. And so one of the things I challenge my team with all the time here, for sure, is I have a particular license that makes no sense for a hobby gamer. And every time someone shows me a game that is in need of a intellectual property, I say, why not this thing that makes no sense? And they thought I was joking for the longest time, and then now I'm not. I want to see things done that surprise people, like how I did. There's a value to believing you can solve the same problem a different way. And that is one of the things L5R really, really got to me. The second is every successful product has more going on than you know. A lot of times, this was very true in crowdfunding. People in early crowdfunding would look at a campaign and go, oh, what makes a campaign successful is how many stretch goals you have, or how many updates you have, or how long your campaign is. But you spend enough time in crowdfunding and you realize what makes crowdfunding successful is how many people follow the campaign and back you in the first 10 seconds. Because the first 10 seconds has nothing to do with all of those things I just mentioned. So sometimes we look at success and we say whatever success did is the reason for success. But often it's the things you don't see. So what really makes most crowdfunding campaigns successful is the work the company did to promote the game that you never saw directly to their fans to get them to follow the campaign and then back it quickly. And L5R, the reason people like it, sometimes even the players don't know. They just know they like it. It's our job to know what the real reason is. Like, what is it really that you like? Samurai are cool is an answer to the question, why do you like this brand? But it's not really the answer. And yeah, I think the other one is related to a story that I can tell that I think it's okay to tell. So back at the Wizard of the Coast days, I'll get back to your question, I promise, at the end of this story.
Yeah, that's all good.
MMOs were a big deal. And so we went to, I think it was E3. I think E3 existed then. And we were trying to pitch Legend of the Five Rings as a new kind of MMO. And so we went to a very, very, very big maker of MMOs and got a meeting with them and said, look, this is our pitch. And this is how we want this game to work. And we finished our pitch and they looked at us like we were 100% insane. Because in our pitch, we had things like you sign up for a story on a server and that server can go any number of different ways as the story progresses based on what the players do. And in fact, you might need to die, go to the afterlife, and then complete some things in the afterlife to help your side win, right? And you would pick your side just like you pick your clan. You might die, you might not die, but you'll still care if your clan does well. If you die, you're not out, you're doing your thing. Magic items only have power when you give them away. So if I kill 50 goblins with a sword. It's now the goblin's killer, but only if I give it to somebody else. Like, there's all kinds of crazy nonsense we had in this pitch.
Wow, yeah.
Then they said, well, how are you going to manage the story being different on every server? I'm like, well, we'll just hire a person. We'll just hire a person, and they will make up things that they think are cool, and sometimes they'll watch what's going on, and then the story will end. So maybe the server runs for 45 days. And then you can sign up for the same story and try to take it a different direction. You can sign up for the next story and go further. And they just could not believe that one person could manage a story like that. And they says, well, I mean, you would have to have like this massive computer program to do all the work. We're like, nope, just people. He goes, well, how many people do you need? Like, I have to have a whole story team. And I'm like, nope, one person. And that's when it hit me that like the people that we let go do their thing could do more than we thought. And we just gave them a lot of freedom. And this billion-dollar industry couldn't figure out how to solve a problem that we solved. Well, I solved, the original team solved in early CCG days. So one of the things I've taken back with me is I'm attracted to those types of ideas. When someone says, I'm going to empower a person, and you know what? They might utterly fail. And hopefully we'll respond quickly enough, but also could crush it. Like I believe in people more, I guess is my answer. I've taken that. For sure.
Yeah, I love that. And what I'm reminded of too, as you tell that story, is the AEG forums did that for many years with their Winter Court, their play-by-post games, where they didn't have, like the graphics or like a computer game to log into, but it was the players driving the story like through all text.
And now it's even more doable on the digital side. Like, yeah. It just takes someone to think, I'm not trying to be World of Warcraft. I'm trying to be something different. And then right now, if you want to be World of Warcraft, your first thought is, where's my $600 million development budget?
Yeah.
And that's what's stopping better ideas from happening. A bit better, different and potentially successful ideas. Maybe they're not World of Warcraft big, but they don't cost you World of Warcraft money. And you can make a real statement with something by approaching a problem that way or an opportunity that way. I just love the idea of a first level character, first level Crane Clan person who's given their little quest they have to do. And although it only powers their clan up by a little tiny bit, they're still doing their part, right? They're still helping their team. And if it ends up with a duel between the highest Crane player and the highest Shadowlands player for all the marbles, everybody's watching. Yeah. Because I know I gave a little bit of power to my Crane Clan guy by finding that egg up in a nest and bringing it down or whatever. So I want those solutions. And I cannot believe, I literally can't believe, since L5R launched, there hasn't been a major media property that's taken this style and embraced it.
Yeah.
Because we're still here talking about L5R 30 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's figured it out. The closest we get is South Park. And I'm not just bringing them up because I brought them up before, but the fact that they make a show every week, they're making a show on pace.
Yeah.
They could obviously, with that style, they could launch some sort of interactive, we don't know how it's going to end, we're listening to feedback somehow.
Yeah, I feel like the closest we've come, Netflix dipped their toes in some choose your own adventure videos.
Yep.
Which was like a novel concept, but it's all like, you still have to shoot all of those alternative endings that may never, not every player gets to see, and that takes money and time and talent.
And it doesn't build a community.
Yeah.
I would much rather have us all watch the show on Monday, have it ask us 4 questions when the show's over, and then have it pool all those answers and then shoot the next episode the next week. That would be more interesting to me, especially if I had to choose which questions I get to vote on based on which personality style which character I choose to follow. So yeah, I'm watching Friends, and I'm Rachel in this season. So I'm telling Rachel what to do.
So if you work in Hollywood, call us.
Yes, we got you.
Well, thank you so much, Luke, for taking the time to chat with me.
Oh, sure. We'll talk L5R forever. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and thank you so much for reaching out. It's fun to relive some of this.
Yeah. Thanks again. This audio recording is copyright Asmodee North America Incorporated, 2025. All rights reserved. Produced and published by Aconyte Books. Legend of the Five Rings and the Legend of the Five Rings logo are trademarks or registered trademarks of Asmodee North America. Stay up to date with all the news from Rokugan and sign up for the official newsletter at l5r.com. Subscribe to the Play to Win podcast from Aconyte Books for more episodes of 30 Years of Legend of the Five Rings.